On the night the imperial consort served the emperor while intoxicated, the regent prince took his own life in his study. He had hated me with a passion, yet his final letter was filled with love for me. The empress. A love so profound it cut to the bone. The news sent shockwaves through the court and the realm. Civil and military officials jointly petitioned to depose the empress, demanding I be nailed to the pillar of infidelity. Finally, my infant son was carried to the consort's palace. She ascended to the throne, while my entire family was executed and our bodies exposed in the wilderness. Yet clearly, she was the one the regent prince had longed for but could never have. When I opened my eyes again, I had reincarnated back to the day the consort entered the palace, when the regent prince once more slashed his own throat for love, attempting to frame me. I bowed gracefully before the emperor in the hall. Your Majesty, I beg your permission to exhume my body for examination. I died by the hand of my beloved. Though my heart burned with resentment, I was powerless to resist. Xiaxian's pale white fingers gripped the wine cup. His expression was indifferent, his icy gaze sweeping over me as if I were a lifeless object. Such a look left me utterly disheartened. My life could be taken with just a cup of poison from Xiaxian's hand. But I refused to accept it. I refused to die unjustly like this. So, stubbornly, I asked him, Xian, why won't you believe me? You're condemning me to death based solely on the one-sided testimonies of the entire court. His icy gaze pierced me deeply. I gave a bitter smile, and hot tears instantly streamed down my face. You intend to execute me with your own hand, based solely on a letter from Regent Prince Guyu? Xiaxian and I had known each other for 7 years. I had accompanied him from a prince with no allies to a crown prince wielding immense power. Now, Xiaxian was the most exalted emperor, while I had become the discarded wife who bore his imperial heir. You and Guyu disregarded my existence and committed such shameful acts. How could I possibly trust you? Where is the majesty of the Son of Heaven? Xiaxian gripped my jaw, forcing the poisoned wine into my mouth. The fiery, bitter poison seared through my body. The agony tore me apart, leaving me curled on the ground. Sweet salty blood trickled from my lips as all strength drained from me. The sharp pain brought a moment of clarity, perhaps a final flicker of life. I lay on the ground, laughing until tears streamed down my face. Until my strength utterly failed me. Everything before my eyes flashed by like a galloping horse. I choked out, Mother. Zhao Zhao hurts so much. This life, piercing my heart, felt like being torn apart by 1,000 knives. To think, I gave 7 years of deep affection and unwavering loyalty. I'd stood by him through the bloody turmoil of the court, ascended to the imperial consort's throne, and risked my life bearing him princesses and princes. My mistake was colossal, the pain searing to my very bones. If heaven granted me a second chance, I would tear them all to pieces. When I opened my eyes again, the voice of my personal maid, Bai Shuang, reached my ears. Your Majesty has just emerged from confinement and is still weak. Hurry and instruct the imperial kitchen to prepare nourishing dishes. The moment I looked at Bai Shuang, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Your Majesty, why do you weep? In my previous life, when disaster struck, Bai Shuang knelt on the ground, banging her head against the floor to plead for mercy on my behalf. She even bled from her forehead, yet she repeatedly assured Xiaxian that Guyu and I had never been intimate. But Xiaxian refused to believe her, mercilessly ordering her execution. I quickly wiped away my tears and clutched Bai Shuang, demanding answers. I never imagined I'd return to the very day Chu Weiyue entered the palace as a consort and Guyu took his own life for love. Guyu was deeply in love with my cousin, Chu Weiyue. Yet the path the Chu family had charted for her was to seduce Xiaxian and enter the palace as a consort. Her appearance was lively and charming, her brow carrying a hint of the grace I possessed in my youth. During my pregnancy, When I was recuperating and unable to manage the affairs of the harem, she feigned a visit to the grand consort. In the imperial garden, she danced to lure the butterflies, captivating Xiaoxian's gaze. Ultimately, disregarding my imminent childbirth, an imperial edict elevated Chu Weiyue to imperial consort, setting an auspicious date for her entry into the palace. That auspicious day is today. Guyu already harbored deep resentment towards Xie and my father, who had jointly stripped him of his power years ago. Now, his beloved was summoned to the palace. Unable to take revenge on the emperor, he doubled his hatred and redirected it toward me. Thus, before taking his own life, he deliberately left behind a suicide note. Its pages overflowed with his undying love for me, the empress. His death prompted the Chu clan to immediately stir the pot from behind the scenes. They incited civil and military officials to jointly petition for my dethronement, nailing me to the pillar of infamy branded as unfaithful. But at this very hour, their scheme remains unfinished, and Guyu has yet to take his own life. Since they so desperately crave death, this lifetime, I shall personally see them off. Before my marriage, Mother, fearing my vulnerability in the palace, secretly spent a fortune to train several personal guards for me. In my past life, events unfolded too swiftly. Before my guards could act, the emperor executed me under the pretext of infidelity. Bai Shuang, deliver this formula to Lin Feng immediately. From childhood, I studied medicine, accompanying the divine physician through every street and alley. The lovesick Guyu was willing to die to help Chu Weiyue eliminate me as an obstacle. This potion of feigned death is the first grand gift I bestow upon them. To welcome the imperial consort, Xiaoxian had lanterns she favored hung along the palace path. When Chu Weiyue came to Fuwan Palace to pay her respects, her eyes brimmed with bashfulness. She concealed the triumphant glow in her brows. Bowing sideways, this humble consort greets Her Majesty the Empress. Her eyes held pools of autumn water, beautiful and gentle. But gentle water, drop by drop, pierces the heart. Otherwise, a mere maiden could never devise such a poisonous scheme, making Guyu die for her, paving her path. I looked at her expressionless, a faint smile curling my lips. We are sisters. Such formalities are unnecessary. Chu Weiyue rose and spoke immediately. Sister, now that you've become the revered empress, it's pitiful for brother Guyu. He's endured 7 long years alone in the mansion, waiting for you. Her words were thick with implication. The servants and maids in my palace immediately bowed their heads in unison. Startled, I signaled to Bai Shuang with a glance. She immediately strode forward, delivering 2 sharp slaps to the imperial consort's face before bellowing. How dare you, imperial consort! Such disregard for protocol! May I inquire who your tutor was? Stunned by the blows, Chu Weiyue knew full well that rank has its privileges. She suppressed the smile tugging at her lips, her eyes brimming with feigned tears as she hastily knelt in apology. Only I knew she'd done it deliberately. She'd planted the seed among the palace staff to frame me for an affair with Guyu. That very night, news of Guyu's suicide spread throughout the palace. Rumors swirled throughout the harem. Sitting in the shadows, sipping tea alone, I overheard the palace maids whispering. They say the imperial consort is the current empress's own cousin. She knows the empress's childhood secrets better than anyone. I've heard it too, the regent prince waited 7 long years for the empress. They've been secretly involved for ages. If that's true, the regent prince is truly a man of unparalleled virtue. He still hasn't taken a wife, what profound devotion. Rumors swirled like invisible blades, capable of killing. Chu Weiyue was certain the emperor would misunderstand me, simply because Guyu and I were childhood sweethearts, acquainted since our youth. But she never imagined this time. I had come prepared. The next morning, before dawn had fully broken, Bai Shuang rushed to me in panic. Your Highness. It's terrible. I calmly arranged my golden hairpin, securing it in my bun. Your Highness. Last night the regent prince suddenly took his own life. Upon hearing the news, this morning during court, all the civil and military officials suddenly petitioned to depose the empress. Now, His Majesty summons you to the court to defend yourself. I rose to my feet, my fingers gently brushing by Shuang's cheek as I smiled softly. Shuang, remember, no matter the outcome, do not plead for me. This battle, I must not only protect myself, but also tear away the true faces of the imperial consort and the regent prince. Bai Shuang and I entered the court together. We met the contemptuous stares of the civil and military officials. Their gazes were like icy blades, both vicious and cold. As I passed each of them, I could read their insults in their eyes. I stood in the center of the grand hall, my gaze fixed upon the throne, upon Xia Xian, the emperor. Your humble servant greets your majesty. Xia Xiyuan flung the suicide note to the floor. He declared, Empress, do you know your crimes? The letter scattered across the ground, its heart-wrenching words pouring out his longing for me. Lamenting our entangled, bittersweet missed opportunities. But these words weren't for me, they were for Chu Weiyue in his heart. In the hall, Minister of Rites Li, a devotee of Songming Neo-Confucianism, presented himself. Your Majesty, the regent prince's death as a declaration of his resolve proves beyond doubt his clandestine affair with the empress. This woman must not be spared, such a demoness brings shame upon the nation's fortune. Chu Weiyue's father, the chancellor, followed immediately. Your Majesty, the empress is the mother of the nation. How could she be an unfaithful woman who commits adultery with men, corrupting morals and customs? In this humble servant's opinion, she should be immediately deposed. Otherwise, if the common people all learn of this, how could your Majesty retain any dignity? The regent prince's suicide holds irrefutable proof. Even my father, the grand tutor, who once outdebated scholars in his youth, now past 50, could find no loophole to defend her. In the court chamber, the man who had lived a life of integrity and principle glanced at me. Then, trembling, he stepped forward into the hall, tears streaming down his aged face. Your Majesty, I beg to resign my post and return to my fields. I implore you to show mercy, spare my daughter's life, and confine her to the cold palace. Just as in my past life, after my father intervened, Xia Xian hesitated. My father had been his teacher in the past. Without his and his disciples' unwavering support, the man now on the imperial throne would never have been him. A son of a concubine. The hall fell instantly silent. Just then, the ministers standing behind Chancellor Chu suddenly knelt in unison, shouting in unison, the regent prince is dead. We beseech your Majesty to depose the empress and remove the young prince from the Phoenix Palace. Gazing at my father's aged back, I clenched my fists, a sharp pang of pain piercing my heart. So when Xia Xian narrowed his eyes, his icy gaze settling upon me once more, I remained unflinching, bowing gracefully before him. Your Majesty, I humbly request permission to open the coffin and conduct an autopsy. The court ministers gasped in shock. Minister Li, who followed Chancellor Chu, immediately stepped forward to petition. This absolutely cannot be. The regent prince passed away not long ago. His body is still warm. The empress is showing great disrespect to the deceased. Opening the coffin for an autopsy is utterly unthinkable. With that, Chancellor Chu immediately knelt on one knee and bowed his head in the center of the hall. Your Majesty, I implore you to reconsider. Xia Xian's icy gaze swept over me, his eyes blazing with fury. All because I had shamed him, shattered the image of the nation's mother as gentle and virtuous. I bowed once more to Xia Xian. Your Majesty, I am the Empress, your lawful wife. I implore you to grant permission for the coffin to be opened. Compared to Yuan's pride, what harm is there in sacrificing a regent prince? The emperor understood better than anyone what truly mattered. Seeing my unwavering resolve, Guyu's body was swiftly carried into the hall. When he was brought in, his face was deathly pale, his eyes tightly shut. Any discerning person could see he was utterly lifeless, his body cold and stiff. Court officials murmured in disbelief, but they didn't know this was a specially adjusted dose of my fake death potion. In 6 hours, he would gradually regain life. So when the emperor's personal physician arrived at the scene, after briefly taking his pulse, his expression instantly turned ashen. Your Majesty, he reported, the regent prince ingested 9 nether grass, a forbidden herb from the previous dynasty. This created the illusion of death by poisoning. What followed sent a collective gasp of shock through the ministers. Even Xian was startled. The physician inserted a silver needle, and Guyu's eyes snapped open. Struggling to sit up, he gazed dazedly at the crowd in the hall. The moment he saw Xian, his body reacted instinctively. He immediately rose to pay his respects. Your humble servant greets your Majesty. Xian, quick-witted, stiffened and demanded in a deep voice. How dare you feign death to deceive the sovereign? Guyu, what are your intentions? These words jolted Guyu back to reality. The haze in his eyes gradually cleared, replaced by a mix of astonishment, shock, and bewilderment. He murmured uncontrollably, I'm not dead? I curved my lips into a faint smile. Before Xian could speak, I had already stepped before Guyu. Without a word, I delivered a sharp slap across his face. Then, I flung the suicide note he had written at him. Regent Prince, why would you deliberately fake your death to ruin my reputation? I have been married to His Majesty for 7 years and have never wavered in my devotion. My eyes have always been fixed solely on His Majesty. Yet you filled your suicide note with schemes against me. What were your intentions? Guyu's face instantly drained of color, cold sweat beading on his forehead. I am the empress, the rightful wife of Xian, wedded by proper ceremony. If Guyu dares to commit insubordination after regaining consciousness, it will be far more severe than merely taking poison. Terrified, he clattered to his knees and frantically kowtowed before the emperor. Your Majesty, this humble servant has never harbored improper thoughts toward Her Majesty. Her Majesty embodies the grace of a mother to the realm. My feelings toward Her Majesty are nothing but reverence and admiration. This suicide note contains not a single word of romantic love. It must be someone deliberately twisting the meaning to frame this humble servant. Your Majesty, please discern the truth, this servant is innocent. He had written cryptically. The letter indeed omitted explicit mention of love, yet concealed affection within its words. Guyu bowed his head once more and declared loudly. Though I knew Her Majesty in our youth, these past 7 years, beyond court banquets, this servant has never met Her Majesty privately. We have not even exchanged letters. Your Majesty, if you do not believe me, surely you trust the Empress? Guyu's solemn and earnest confession made Xian reluctant to press further in the court. On the surface, it was enough to prove the Empress's innocence. But how could he let Guyu off so easily? Xian's expression turned icy as he ordered a eunuch to draft an edict on the spot, stripping Guyu of his court offices, yet sparing him due to his father's past merits. He was temporarily demoted to the rank of prince. All remaining matters would await further investigation by the Supreme Court. Upon hearing the imperial decree, Guyu immediately knelt to express his gratitude. Xian was in a foul mood. With no further important matters to discuss at the morning court session, he dismissed the assembly. The ministers quickly withdrew like a receding tide. Only Guyu, having spent the night in a coffin, moved slowly with unsteady legs. Yet, just as he was about to step out of the hall, A jade pendant suddenly fell from his waist. The moment the pendant dropped, my heart tightened, and I abruptly looked towards Xian seated on the dais. He had already risen, his expression cold as he stared at me. Impossible! How could my personal jade pendant be on him? Well done. Chu Weiyue, you had a hidden ace up your sleeve all along. This jade pendant was a wedding gift from my elder brother. He personally sketched the design and commissioned artisans to carve it with utmost care. Back when Chu Weiyue and I were still on friendly terms, she once borrowed it to admire, accidentally keeping it past the agreed time and returning it only the next day. I've worn it constantly these past years. Everyone close to me knew it was mine, let alone Xian. I never imagined that back then. Chu Weiyue had already concealed her hidden blade. Xian erupted in fury. Empress! How long do you intend to keep up this charade? I immediately knelt, my voice steady and unyielding. Your Majesty, please discern clearly, this is not my jade pendant. This pendant is a deliberate imitation of mine. Even when I placed both pendants side by side for comparison, Xian refused to believe me. He even suspected that Gu Yu and I had exchanged tokens. You still refuse to admit it now. Xian's rage boiled over, his eyes blazing with fury as he declared. As the head of the 6 palaces, the Empress has never set an example. Instead, she grows ever more insolent and disrespectful. Consort Chu, however, is dignified and virtuous, far surpassing you. If you cannot set an example within the harem, let Consort Chu assist in managing its affairs. The moment Consort Chu entered the palace, she began stripping away the Empress's authority. This proves just how despised and hollow my title as Empress truly is. The instant Gu Yu was dragged away, I caught the fleeting smile on his lips. He secretly framed me, leading to my power being stripped. He thought he'd temporarily escaped punishment. Little did he know, I would never let him off the hook. Once the 3 months are up, the fake death potion within him will no longer suppress the toxins and will completely fail. When the poison takes full effect, that agony of wanting to die but unable to. Gu Yu, you'd better savor it, don't dare breathe your last too soon. News from the former court brought instant joy to Chu Weiyue's face. She eagerly accepted the authority Xian had granted her. Delighted, she believed her plan had succeeded, that I was utterly subdued by her. Chu Weiyue was immediately crowned imperial consort upon entering the palace, now wielding power over the 6 palaces. Everyone fawned over her, elevating her to the heavens. She believed her fortune had finally arrived. By dusk, she had her personal maid prepare her for the evening, awaiting Xian's arrival. Yet that night, Xian didn't spend the night in her palace at all. Instead, he casually flipped open the tablet of a lowly concubine. The emperor's action felt like a slap across the face to Chu Weiyue, leaving her utterly humiliated. This enraged Chu Weiyue beyond measure. She cried out, demanding to storm out of her chambers to confront Xian, only to be held back by her dowry maid, who pleaded with her, threatening suicide. Then, she slapped the dowry maid more than a dozen times before her fury was temporarily quelled. That night, consumed by hatred for me, Chu Weiyue fell asleep and dreamt a vivid dream. She dreamt the emperor passed away, and she guided the crown prince to ascend the throne. She ruled from behind the curtain, becoming the revered Empress Dowager. In the dream, standing before the dragon throne, she spoke for the frail young emperor to his ministers. Rise, my lords. By dawn the next day, Chu Weiyue had shed her previous fury. Her fighting spirit reignited. Her gaze toward Fenghuan Palace now seemed poisoned, as if everything that belonged to me was rightfully hers. She believed herself destined by heaven to be Empress Dowager. Little did she know, every word she uttered in her sleep last night was relayed to me by the second-class palace maid on night duty. Several days later, Chu Weiyue, clad in a Western region dance gown, sat under the moonlight, strumming her pipa and singing a folk tune. She staged a chance encounter with Xian in the imperial garden, successfully piquing his interest. Convinced she would bear an imperial heir and challenge me openly, she clung to Xian ever more persistently, employing every art to entangle him in passion. Yet over a month had passed since her entry into the palace. For the past fortnight, she had served him nightly, yet remained childless. Now, Chu Weiyue could no longer sit idly by. Daring not to confide in the Grand Censor, she could only turn once more to the person she trusted most outside the palace. Gu Yu. She dispatched a message to the regent prince's residence. She requested Gu Yu to disguise himself and come swiftly to the palace for a meeting during the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet. Upon seeing Gu Yu, Chu Weiyue could wait no longer and voiced her plea. Brother Gu Yu, I am with His Majesty nightly, yet I have not conceived. Her pitiful gaze fixed on him as she whispered. I wish to conceive an imperial heir soon, to secure my standing within the palace. I've heard of a distant sect called Chaoyun, whose medical master possesses extraordinary healing arts, even reputed to bring the dead back to life. Would you journey there for me to seek a fertility elixir? Gu Yu had once attempted suicide for her sake. How much less so for something as trivial as procuring medicine? Gu Yu agreed without hesitation. I learned of this matter through a letter sent by the medical master via carrier pigeon. But they didn't know I was the sole disciple of the reclusive elder of the Chaoyun sect. The medical master recognized Gu Yu as my childhood companion and revealed the entire affair to me. A fertility potion, you say? Very well. I shall personally craft a custom formula for Chu Weiyue, one that will send her and Gu Yu straight to hell. Ever since Chu Weiyue began taking the fertility potion daily, her complexion improved markedly. Her cheeks glowed rosy against her fair skin, and her delicate face often lit up with smiles. Xian frequently selected her name, retiring to her palace for the night. Gradually, relying on her youthful beauty, Chu Weiyue became the most favored imperial consort in the harem. She and Xian spent their nights under the moonlight, deeply in love. For a full month, Chu Weiyue enjoyed unceasing favor, envied by all the other consorts. She even boasted that she would surely bear a prince. Sure enough, soon, joyful news spread through Chu Weiyue's palace. Upon hearing the news from outside, Bai Shuang's tears fell instantly. Your Highness, no one in the palace regards you with respect anymore. Instead, everyone reveres the imperial consort. Even His Majesty frequently visits her chambers. If she bears a prince, our eldest prince's position. Bai Shuang's eyes brimmed with worry, fearing I would lose favor and even have the empress's position snatched away. I, however, remained utterly unconcerned, urging her to sit down and share tea with me. When the drama unfolds in Yue Palace, my treasured 10 tales of snow peak tea will be just enough to finish. The first month of Chu Weiyue's pregnancy, the Imperial Astronomical Bureau declared the prince within her womb would greatly benefit the nation's fortune. Destined for greatness. This news filled even Xian with boundless joy. Luxurious treasures flowed into her palace like water, as if he feared Chu Weiyue might lack anything. Gradually, relying on her royal pregnancy and Xian's adoration, Chu Weiyue grew arrogant. She became spoiled by her favor. That day, when we met in the imperial garden, her eyes held nothing but mockery. Your Majesty, you are no longer young, while His Majesty and this humble servant are still in the prime of life. I kindly remind you to take care of your health, lest I grow restless with time. I couldn't be bothered to respond, turning away to leave. At 25, I was indeed no longer young in this imperial harem. I had already borne him a son and a daughter, but I only needed to ensure they were legitimate heirs. That was enough. For what I ever cared about was never favor, but positions of greater power and challenge. Half a month later, The Imperial Academy held its sixth arts competition. This biennial event drew the emperor and ministers straight from court proceedings. Concubines too must take their seats punctually. Xia Xian and I sat in the grand hall. Chu Weiyue occupied the emperor's side, radiating the aura of a favored consort. Seated high above, we could scarcely discern the scene below. Throughout the event, only one small figure stood out, clad in brocade robes with a high ponytail, emerging victorious. The judge continuously presented the champion's credentials upward. The winner was a 5-year-old child. Court ministers and ladies alike showered praise. Whose young master is this? So remarkably gifted? Such excellence in a child, truly the future hope of our dynasty. I tugged at the corners of my lips, letting out a soft chuckle. My gaze settled on her, unable to look away, until Xia Xian summoned the top 3 to the viewing platform to receive their rewards. The exquisitely featured little girl dashed up to the platform, her eyes fixed directly on me, sparkling with amusement. The academy headmaster, who had come to present the awards, paled visibly upon seeing her. He immediately knelt down. "Your humble servant greets the eldest princess." A ripple of astonishment swept through the crowd. Eyes met in mutual shock. The top scholar was none other than the eldest princess, who never appeared in public. Such excellence in the eldest princess is a blessing bestowed by His Majesty and Her Majesty the Empress. Learning that the celebrated top scholar was the legitimate eldest princess, Chu Weiyue's expression abruptly changed. Her hand drifted to her slightly rounded belly as a look of hatred fixed on me. She likely never imagined my daughter would be such a rare prodigy. Back then, Xia Xian blamed me for bearing a princess instead of a prince as my firstborn. He merely glanced at our daughter, Yunhe, after the birth. From that day on, he never once showed interest. For 5 long years, I raised Yunhe entirely on my own. Now, Yunhe had restored Xia Xian's honor, instantly lighting up his face with joy and filling his eyes with pride. He rose, his gaze fixed on the poised and composed Yunhe on the viewing platform. Truly worthy of being my imperial son, every trait mirrors mine. The ministers immediately showered him with flattery. This only deepened Xia Xian's already high spirits. With a sweeping gesture, he bestowed the title Yongning upon Yunhe. A banquet would be held tonight in the Golden Hall to celebrate Yongning. The ministers promptly knelt to pay their respects. "Your Majesty's wisdom blesses the realm." A hint of warmth flickered in Xia Xian's usually icy eyes. He beckoned Yunhe over with a wave. But before she could approach, Xia Xian's vision darkened, and he collapsed on the spot. His sudden fainting sent shockwaves through the crowd. "Your Majesty! Quick! Summon the imperial physician." Chaos erupted. No one understood why Xia Xian, who had been perfectly fine moments before, had suddenly collapsed. Only I knew it was the initial manifestation of poisoning symptoms. This was merely the beginning. The imperial physician examined Xia Xian. He merely stated the emperor had been suffering from recent exhaustion, finding no underlying cause. Xia Xian showed no other symptoms and paid it no mind. Now that Chu Weiyue was attending to Xia Xian, he had no need for me. As the imperial physician and I emerged, we happened upon a guard from Prince Guyu's retinue. He arrived in a state of urgent haste. Upon seeing me, he immediately composed his flustered expression and bowed respectfully. I feigned ignorance. "What has happened? Why such panic?" Prince Gu recently fell ill with a sudden affliction, excruciating headaches and frequent nausea and vomiting. The physician's prescriptions proved utterly ineffective. Now His Highness lies bedridden, unable to keep food down. We humbly request Physician Wei to come to the mansion. Judging by the timing, it was indeed the hour when Guyu's symptoms would flare. But he didn't know that nausea and vomiting were merely the beginning. The poison he'd ingested would only grow more agonizing as time passed. I feigned urgency, urging Imperial Physician Wei to hasten to treat Guyu. His death was imminent, and I desired his demise more than anyone. Meanwhile, Xia Xian remained immersed in Chu Weiyue's passionate devotion. Until, at 2 months, her abdomen began to swell. The imperial consort's fetus seemed to grow at an extraordinary pace. After 2 months, her belly was as prominent as that of a woman 3 or 4 months along. Chu Weiyue paid no heed, instead growing more elated. She gloated to Xia Xian. "Your Majesty, this is because the child within me is the Prince of Blessings. He must have inherited your..." Even the imperial physicians found nothing amiss, his pulse was steady. Everything normal. This emboldened Chu Weiyue further, allowing her to practically strut through the harem. One day, Yunhe prepared peach blossom cakes in the imperial kitchen, intending to bring them to Xia Xian. Midway, she was intercepted by Chu Weiyue. Her eyes darted, and she immediately dispatched attendants to block Yunhe's path. "Halt!" Yunhe frowned, her gaze sweeping over Chu Weiyue. A fleeting look of disgust crossed her small face. Since becoming pregnant, Chu Weiyue's appetite had grown voracious. She couldn't resist eating more to supplement her nutrition. Spotting the freshly baked, fragrant peach blossom cakes, Chu Weiyue couldn't help but reach out. Her hand reached for the peach blossom cakes on the plate, but Yunhe dodged her. "You're not allowed to eat them." Yunhe was just a child after all. Speaking bluntly and without guile, Chu Weiyue snorted derisively, her face brimming with disdain. "There isn't a single dish in this entire palace that this palace cannot eat. Tell me, why can't I have these?" Yunhe clutched the peach blossom cakes tightly, unwilling to let her hard work be snatched away. She protested loudly. "These are the peach blossom cakes I made personally for Father Emperor. He hasn't tasted them yet, how dare you try them first?" Hearing they were meant for Xia Xian, Chu Weiyue felt a surge of resentment and craved them even more. She pursed her lips, her voice low and sinister. "Who would have thought a princess so young could be so vicious? Do you not even respect your elders? I carry His Majesty's royal heir within me, what harm could one peach blossom pastry do?" Chu Weiyue signaled to the maidservant beside her. Taking advantage of their numbers, the maidservant seized Yunhe and snatched the tray from her hands without hesitation. "This is for Father Emperor." Chu Weiyue snorted coldly, lecturing her. "The Emperor's possessions are mine. Do you understand?" With that, she pinched a peach blossom pastry and raised it to her mouth. But just as it reached her lips, a sudden, wrenching pain gripped Chu Weiyue's abdomen. Seeing this, she quickly took a bite before flinging the peach blossom pastry to the floor. By now, she was trembling violently, cold sweat beading on her forehead. "Your Highness!" Amid the maidservant's concerned cries, crimson blood began flowing between Chu Weiyue's legs. Chu Weiyue felt a wave of wet heat and instantly widened her eyes in terror. "The imperial physician! Quick! Summon the imperial physician!" she cried in disbelief. Upon learning of this, I rushed straight to Yue Palace. When I arrived, Chu Weiyue was deathly pale, weeping as she pleaded with Xia Xian. "Your Majesty, I merely ate a peach cake from Yongning, and now I've lost my child." Tears fell from her eyes, filled with sorrow and desolation. It must be her. Acting on the Empress's orders, she deliberately plotted to harm my royal child. I hurried inside and embraced Yunhe. Yunhe was also deeply frightened. Seeing me, she stubbornly pressed her lips together, her eyes instantly welling up. "Mother, I didn't." Chu Weiyue refused to listen to Yunhe's explanation, adamantly insisting Yunhe had harmed her. "Your Majesty, you must avenge me." Xia Xian's expression darkened with malice, his eyes blazing with unmasked fury as he glared coldly at Yunhe. Fearing I might leave a psychological scar on Yunhe, I immediately reached out to cover her eyes. "Your Majesty, Yongning is still so young. How could she possibly commit such a vicious act?" Do not listen to Sister Chu's one-sided account. You must also hear the imperial physician's words. Imperial physician Wei was Xia Xian's trusted confidant. Whatever he said, Xia Xian would surely heed. Imperial physician Wei approached with trembling reverence. He sighed, his eyes filled with hesitation. Seeing this, Xia Xian impatiently urged. Today, if you cannot reach a conclusion, you shall immediately be expelled from the Imperial Medical Bureau. Wei hurriedly knelt. His voice trembled as he exclaimed, Your Majesty, I dare speak the truth. The noble consort has suffered 2 miscarriages. It is unlikely she can conceive again. Losing this pregnancy is only to be expected. The words fell, and the entire Yue palace fell silent. Xia Xian's face darkened further. Chu Weiyue was utterly thrown into panic, pulling herself away from Xia Xian's embrace. Her expression hardened as she shouted angrily. What nonsense are you spouting? I am still young, how could I have miscarried? Chu Weiyue's face was deathly pale as she desperately reached for Xia Xian's hand. He easily dodged her grasp, refusing to let her touch him. Imperial physician Wei. Before entering the palace, I was an unmarried maiden. How could I possibly commit such a vile act as inducing a miscarriage? Chu Weiyue began pressuring him. Speak! Who instructed you to make such accusations? Plotting to harm this palace? Hearing this, Imperial physician Wei knelt on the ground, dared not rise, dared not lift his head. Your Majesty, every word this humble servant has spoken is true, without the slightest falsehood. The noble consort suffered a pregnancy in her youth, which damaged her womb and made it impossible to carry the imperial prince to term. This statement undoubtedly pushed Chu Weiyue toward a capital offense. Chu Weiyue had already lost her composure. Her eyes filled with panic as she scanned the hall, her gaze finally settling on me. It was you! It must have been you! You ordered the physician to poison me, to frame the prince and protect Yongning. You'll stop at nothing. I picked up the peach cake Chu Weiyue had bitten into and handed it to the physician for examination. After his examination, the physician reported once more. Your Majesty, Princess Yongning did not poison the peach cake. Therefore, Chu Weiyue alone bears responsibility for this entire affair. Xia Xian, whose face had remained dark and sullen, clenched his fists. He slammed his fist onto the tabletop, his icy gaze sweeping over Chu Weiyue. No one understood that look better than I. At this very moment, in Xia Xian's heart, she was nothing but a worthless, lifeless object. Consort Chu, for corrupting the harem, your crime is unforgivable. Effective immediately, you are confined to the cold palace. With the emperor's decree, no one dared to intercede. Chu Weiyue, who had been shouting moments before, suddenly deflated. She collapsed onto the floor, nearly breaking down, her pale little face streaming with tears of despair. She wailed pitifully, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, I am innocent. I have never been with another man. I have never been pregnant. This is my first child with Your Majesty. Xia Xian's gaze remained cold and distant. Not a trace of his former tenderness lingered in his eyes, only utter indifference. The imperial family is the most heartless of all. Even the young and beautiful Chu Weiyue was no exception. She was indeed wronged. But so what? She dared to destroy my entire family, snatch my royal heir, and frame my own daughter. This was the fate she deserved. Chu Weiyue collapsed, crawling on her knees to cling desperately to Xia Xian's leg. Your Majesty, we shared days of deep affection. How could others not know what kind of person Weiyue is? Surely you do. I smiled faintly, mocking her naivety. Playing the emotional card now would only pour fuel on the fire. Xia Xian flew into a rage, kicking her hard in the abdomen. The pain made Chu Weiyue break out in cold sweat, curling up on the floor, unable to stand. Finally, Servants dragged her out of the bedchamber and into the bleak, desolate, cold palace. Xiaxian was deeply distressed by her fate and avoided the harem for a long time. I silently calculated the time, waiting and waiting until the uplifting news finally arrived. Bai Shuang hurried over to report. Your Highness, Prince Gu passed away in the middle of the night yesterday. Upon hearing this, His Majesty ordered the prince's body dragged to the Imperial Medical Institute for an autopsy. I set down my golden hairpin and lifted my gaze to the figure reflected in the brass mirror. In a daze, it seemed I saw the helpless, isolated self from my past life. A wave of relief washed over me, the knot in my chest slowly unraveling. Having learned his lesson last time, Xiaxian grew increasingly cautious. Come with me to see. I proceeded to the Imperial Medical Bureau. The moment the white cloth was lifted, Prince Gu Yu's withered, yellowed corpse appeared before me. Everyone was horrified by his pitiful state. Only in my eyes did a flicker of light appear. My reaction was swift. The next second, I began my act, pretending to be so frightened I dared not look. Xiaxian drew me into his embrace, murmuring softly, "Are you frightened? Frightened? How could I fear someone I killed with my own hands?" After completing his examination, Physician Wei stepped forward to report. Your Majesty, the prince has passed away. Please contain your grief. Xiaxian showed no sign of relaxation as he pressed. Do you know how he died? At these words, my heart sank. Xiaxian actually intends to investigate Gu Yu's cause of death? The prince's death was bizarre, as if he'd been poisoned by some strange toxin. He lost all 5 senses, became unable to care for himself. Then his internal organs were all contaminated by the poisonous gas. They rotted away, oozing pus and infection. His skin soon followed, festering and decaying. Crystals formed on his bones, causing agony worse than death. Day after day, night after night, he endured until he was literally tortured to death. Xiaxian furrowed his brow and asked in a deep voice, "Have you identified what strange poison it was?" Imperial Physician Wei bowed his head. Forgive my incompetence, Your Highness. I have yet to determine it. Xiaxian cursed in displeasure and stormed out, flinging his sleeves behind him. Little did Xiaxian know that poison was already invading his own body at that very moment. However, Gu Yu's poison originated from Chu Weiyue, spreading slowly and silently. His own poison, however, would inevitably strike when the time came. After Gu Yu's death, Xiaxian immersed himself in state affairs, spending his days reviewing memorials in the imperial study. I had a rui cake made and sent it to him in the imperial study. But the eunuch stopped me at the door. Your Highness, perhaps you should urge His Majesty to take care of his health. I raised an eyebrow, feigning concern. What makes you say that? The eunuch's eyes were filled with worry as he sighed. His Majesty coughs every night, coughing up blood. He struggles to sleep night after night, poring over memorials all day. If this continues, it pains this old servant to watch. I murmured softly, I'll go see him. I brought in the rui cake. The moment I pushed open the door, Xiaxian's memorials came flying at me. He coughed once, his voice angry. Who dares open the door and let in light? Drag them out and behead them. Your Majesty, it is your consort. Xiaxian said nothing more, silently permitting my entry. I approached him and set down the rui cake. Your Majesty, you should rest your eyes when you are weary. Xiaxian turned his face toward me. His handsome features held no luster. His eyes bloodshot. Wearily, he closed them. He murmured, Empress, lately I keep dreaming of the day we first met. Your Majesty, I replied, we've known each other for 7 years. Even if everyone else turns away from you, I will stand by your side for the rest of our lives. I took his icy fingers in mine. Xie Xian lowered his head and pressed a tender kiss to the back of my hand. The tender moment was interrupted as the eunuch stepped forward to report. Your Majesty, the Minister of Justice requests an audience. Xie Xian's gaze swept the room, his dangerous stare instantly locking onto me. He had long suspected my relationship with Guyu. He had already ordered the junior Minister of Justice to investigate secretly. After the junior minister approached and bowed, his eyes fixed on me, imploring that court affairs were no place for me. Your Majesty, this servant shall withdraw first. Just as I reached to carry away the rui cake from the table, my hand was suddenly grasped. It matters not. Since Xie Xian has spoken, the junior minister has no further words. The junior minister presented the evidence, placing it into Xie Xian's hands. Your Majesty, this humble servant has uncovered the truth. The junior minister's gaze fell upon me as he murmured softly. The empress and the prince have no connection whatsoever. The one truly connected to the prince is Consort Chu. With that, the conspiracy revealed in Chu Weiyue and Guyu's correspondence was fully exposed. After Guyu's death, when the junior minister went to confiscate the estate, he discovered their secret correspondence hidden in a secret chamber within the study. Every stroke of Chu Weiyue's handwriting had been treasured with profound affection by Guyu, who had preserved them with utmost care. Among them was a letter where Guyu, emotionally shattered, begged Chu Weiyue not to enter the palace as a consort, and another where Chu Weiyue, using Guyu to consume poison, colluded with the Chu family to frame and incriminate me. The glaring evidence lay before Xie Xian. Rage boiled within Xie Xian, his eyes blazing with fury. He clutched the letters and slammed them onto the table. Damn it! He sprang to his feet, his chest heaving violently as his breathing grew ragged. A metallic taste surged in his throat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. I gasped. Your Majesty! Xie Xian leaned against me, his fingertips gently wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, a cold smile playing on his lips. I am well. Support me to the cold palace. It seemed Xie Xian now couldn't wait to deal with Chu Weiyue. So be it. I've been waiting impatiently for this. As soon as they reached the cold palace, Chu Weiyue's eyes lit up. She stumbled forward, her eyes glistening with tears, yet unable to hide her joy. Kneeling before Xie Xian, she pleaded urgently. Your Majesty, you've come to bring me back to the palace, haven't you? She lifted her small face, a tear silently rolling down her cheek. You must have uncovered the truth and come to retrieve me, right? I never miscarried. Never. Xie Xian's hand shot out, slapping her across the face. The blow drew blood from the corner of her mouth. She froze, her gaze turning to Xie Xian with utter disappointment. Why won't you believe me? Xie Xian snatched the letters from the eunuch's hands and hurled them all at her face. He roared furiously. Look at this! How can I possibly trust you? The scattered letters littered the floor, leaving Chu Weiyue no time to gather them. She frantically grabbed one letter, her body jerking as shock flooded her eyes. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! I and Guyu are innocent. Even now. Chu Weiyue felt guilty uttering these words. Her trembling fingertips clutched the letter tightly. The despair in Chu Weiyue's eyes grew ever more intense, a sight that filled me with delight. Xie Xian pinched her cheek, sneering. Innocent? You and Guyu plotting to kill the empress is innocent? Pushing the empress into public disgrace is innocent? This time you targeted the empress, will I be next? Chu Weiyue shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. Soon you'll conspire with Guyu to overthrow me. No. No. No matter how Chu Weiyue protested, it was futile. No one would listen. No one would believe her. Xie Xian was enraged to the extreme. His face turned deathly pale as he lashed out. slapping Chu Weiyue across the cheek. Bring the poisoned wine. With that, he ordered a eunuch to bring the poisoned wine. Xie Xian had no strength left to deal with her. He mounted his palanquin and returned to the palace. I'll stay here, I said, my gaze calm as I looked at Chu Weiyue. She scrambled over, kneeling on the ground and banging her head repeatedly. Sister, I beg you, save me. Sister, I know I was wrong. Blood stained her forehead crimson. A pitiful sight. I waved my hand, signaling the servants to leave. Only she and I remained in the cold, gloomy room. I laughed brightly and heartily, an endless wave of satisfaction surging through me. My dear sister, are you pleased? Everything you have, I gave you. At these words, Chu Weiyue's pupils contracted sharply, her expression instantly turning icy. The fertility potion you drank, I personally prescribed it. The child in your womb, I made you conceive it. I laced your medicine with a substance to create the illusion of a miscarriage. And that potion, a fetus at that stage would miscarry naturally anyway. And even Gu Yu, who loved you most, I killed him with my own hands. I let out a derisive laugh, a glint of tears flashing in my eyes. In my past life, I refused to fight them. Yet they struck when I was unprepared, plotting my death. Do they even deserve to be my opponents? Shock flashed through Chu Weiyue's eyes. Her eyes widened in terror. It was you! It was all you! She staggered to her feet and rushed out like a madwoman. I'll tell the Emperor. You're the one responsible for everything. Your Majesty. I've been framed. The cold palace is filled with my people. Who would listen to her cries? I grabbed her hair and yanked her back from the doorway. Gripping her jaw, I forced poisoned wine into her mouth. I set down the wine cup and slapped her face. Whether he believes it or not, you'll both die anyway. Gu Yu is waiting for you in the underworld. Go reunite with him first. As for Xie Xian, if you wish to explain, then you too shall wait for him in the underworld. After he descends, you may tell him in person. My plans extend far beyond this. Chu Weiyue slumped over the table, frantically gagging at her throat. I don't want to die. Whether she lives or dies is not up to her. I ordered Bai Shuang to strangle her, eliminating any future trouble. The instant the door slammed shut, I saw Chu Weiyue's cheeks flush crimson from suffocation. That gaze of endless despair, truly vivid. Afterwards, Xie Xian ordered the entire Chu family executed. The fall of a distinguished chancellor to such a fate shook the entire court. Xie Xian's temper grew increasingly volatile and uncontrollable. He shunned light, lay sleepless through the night, his mood dark and gloomy. Everyone in the palace trembled in fear. Within a single month, Xie Xian ordered the execution of 10 maidservants and 8 eunuchs. All for trivial matters, he simply found them displeasing and had them killed. In his eyes, human life was worthless, as insignificant as grass. To prevent his breakdowns, I often offered him calming incense. Thus, Xie Xian cherished my presence above all. He would lean against my shoulder, his gaze filled with deep affection. Zhao Zhao, I have erred. My fingertips brushed his gaunt cheek as I smiled gently. Your Majesty, where have you gone wrong? He clasped my fingers, bowed his head, and murmured, Zhao Zhao, I should never have trusted Chu Weiyue. Never favored her. Never disappointed you. It turns out, from the very beginning, the only one who could stand by my side and trust me was Zhao Zhao. Zhao Zhao, we've known each other for years. Yet it's been so long since I last spoke with you properly like this. All these years, I've wronged you, neglected you. I listened quietly to his murmurs, speechless. I longed to hear mother call me Zhao Zhao, to hear father call me Zhao Zhao, but never these two words from his lips. I loathed them, feared they'd bring me bad luck. From then on, Xiaxian constantly pulled me aside to talk, to apologize, to recount the days we'd known each other. His health deteriorated steadily, leaving him often confined to his sickbed. He frequently coughed up blood, the color shifting from bright red to dark intari. The imperial physicians paced anxiously, prescribing one remedy after another, all to no avail. That day, Xiaxian embraced me tightly from behind. His chin rested on my shoulder, gently rubbing against it. "Zhao Zhao, why don't you call me anymore?" I smiled softly and whispered, "Your Majesty, what are you saying?" His tone held inexpressible grievance, a mix of sorrow and the tender confessions of a youth. "Why don't you call me your husband? Why don't you call me Scion?" I turned to face him, my gaze meeting his, looking into his lifeless eyes. I smiled gently. "Does your Majesty even know my name?" He froze. "Zhao Zhao. And my full name?" Xiaxian stared blankly for a long moment. His eyes flickered. He pressed his lips together and evaded. "Zhao Zhao. I took medicine. I can't remember anyone." No. I never gave him any medicine that would cloud his mind. He wasn't forgetting, he was deliberately forgetting. In his eyes, I was his lawful wife, the empress, the mother of princesses and princes, and simply Zhao Zhao. But my mother and father never forgot my name. I am Shinjin Zhao, the youngest and most cherished legitimate daughter of the Shin family. Over the next few days, Xiaxian's illness grew critical, and he could scarcely keep down even basic meals. That night, lying upon the imperial yellow bed, his gaze fixed intently upon me. "Zhao Zhao. Call me husband. Will you?" I snorted derisively, no longer concealing my loathing for him. Looking down upon him from above, I asked coldly, "What wife would poison her own husband?" "Yes. Poison. My poison never touched him, it was meant for the late consort Chu." Xiaxian's eyes widened in utter exhaustion. He kept staring at me, reaching out to grab me, but I dodged his grasp. "Your Majesty, haven't you noticed your health deteriorating daily? Ever since you took pleasure with Chu Weiyue, you fainted in the academy, then coughed up blood, developed photophobia, and suffered muscle contractions. Chu Weiyue carries a deadly poison. Her miscarriage was a sham, I poisoned her. Guyu's fake death potion was my doing too." I laughed aloud, my eyes filled with desolation. "Even your union with her was a mistake. I laced her poison so you'd suffer its effects together. Isn't that amusing? Imperial power, court affairs, the harem, I want it all." Xiaxian struggled to rise, but I pressed him back down. His lips trembled as he roared, "Shen, Jin, Zhao." I blinked innocently and asked softly, "Your Majesty, may I still call you husband?" He kept calling my name, over and over, until, finally, he closed his eyes in bitter resignation. I stepped outside, weeping uncontrollably as I cried out, "His Majesty has passed." Our youngest son, Xiao Weiran, was still too young, so I drew sharp features on Yunhe's face, dressing the still stunted girl in men's attire to take Weiran's place on the throne. Whenever Yunhe attended court, she wore the imperial crown, its jade bead pendant obscuring her face. With most of her features hidden, her true appearance remained unseen. I assisted Yunhe in governing the realm. She proved quick-witted and perceptive, grasping matters instantly. Weiran, however, had little interest in state affairs. He devoted himself to music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, while indulging in cat play and cricket fighting. Over 5 consecutive years, Yunhe grew increasingly radiant with the aura of an empress, every gesture exuding an air of nobility. During her reign, I reformed numerous political abuses. Women were permitted to attend court sessions, while men were barred from polygamy, establishing a monogamous system. Though many ministers voiced discontent, under my absolute authority, none dared raise objections. Thanks to my diplomatic skills, our nation maintained peaceful relations with neighboring states, and no wars ever threatened us again. Yet, on the very same day, both my mother and father passed away. From that moment on, no one called me Zhao Zhao anymore. 5 years later, Weiran decided to ascend the mountain to study medicine at the Chaoyun sect. But just as Weiran was about to leave the palace, Yunhe's true identity was exposed. Court officials rushed forward to pay their respects. How can a woman rule the court? Where is our dynasty's dignity? The late emperor passed 5 years ago. Has Princess Yunhe been reigning all this time? Yunhe stood rigidly upright in the center of the hall. Though only 10 years old, her presence rivaled any present. She asked, "Why can't a woman be emperor?" Ministers scrambled to answer. Throughout history, has any woman ever ruled as emperor? This is no precedent, but an exception. Your actions deceive loyal ministers and break the people's hearts. Yunhe narrowed her eyes, her expression deeply displeased. Why can't a woman be emperor? The empire and its people come first. What does gender matter? Women are no less than you. At 5 years old, I surpassed the sons you painstakingly raised. You train boys to be generals, ministers, historians. Must girls be confined to being wives, mothers, slaves, or maids? Yunhe's words left the ministers speechless. Yet they stubbornly insisted the princess could not ascend the throne. Emerging from the rear of the hall, I heard Yunhe's words clearly. My gaze swept across the assembly, meeting only eyes filled with fear and complexity. Yunhe stood beside me, bowing respectfully. Your Imperial Majesty pays respects to the Empress Dowager. The ministers immediately knelt in homage. I did not permit them to rise, insisting they remain kneeling to hear. For 5 years under the regency, our nations enjoyed peace. Since then, our borders have known no war, and our people have lived in contentment. Why then should they feel disheartened? Your wives and daughters are confined within the walls of your mansions, bound to obey your commands. They are not wives, nor daughters, they are your slaves. Now, women may perform in the streets, women may hold office, and women may even take up arms as generals on the battlefield. They are fierce warriors, cunning strategists. In what way are they inferior to you? I am the Empress Dowager, and Yunhe is the emperor. If you can present a petition listing any single fault in Yunhe's 5 years of governance, I shall willingly step down. Yunhe and I have poured our hearts and souls into caring for the common people, never committing any grave errors. As Regent Empress Dowager, my methods grew increasingly firm. Finally, against all opposition, I elevated Yunhe to become an empress of her generation. Thus, I fulfilled the lifelong aspiration of my later years. The end.